Tanya, you were born in South Korea, and then when you were 18, you came to the U.S. Did you arrive to Los Angeles first?
Yes, I came to the Los Angeles first.
Yeah. And did you write poetry as a teenager in Korea?
Yeah, like I was like really young, and then I was like writing poems, of course, in Korean,
Mm-hmm.
and then I like to, write anything. I love to read, and I like to think, So, and in Korea, in school, they're like the contests, like literature contests
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that. So I won those kind of like contests, and then I thought, oh, I want to be a writer, and then. I wanted to like write, and then I wanted to study Korean literature and all that kind of stuff. And I came to United States, and then I thought, oh, now what?
Was your family involved in literature?
No, not
No.
really, not really.
So you had that kind of instinct, and then you wrote poetry as a teenager, you won some contest, and then you kept writing, and then you came to the U.S.
Yes.
And then here you experienced two languages, two cultures, two education systems.
Yes, culture shock. Let's talk about that, right?
But so evidently that experience in both cultures has informed your writing, and I believe more or less like 10 years after you came to the U.S., you published your first book, or Generation 1.5.
Yes.
How would you define a Generation 1.5?
At that time, like a lot of immigrants start coming, like late 70s and early 80s. And then usually before that, like first generation came to the United States, like older age. But now they're like at that time, they bring young children, and then so they don't have like what is the term of like this young generation, what should we call? And they start like have a naming like 1.5, generation 1.5. They're in between the generation. So that becomes like a new term. Like it started from, I believe, in Korean immigrant community. And then it's like now that everybody knows like what is a 1.5 generation. So it's between like young children who come with their parents, and then they got educated in United States. So I was like facing like my parents, like first generation Korean culture, and then here I'm going to school, and then facing American culture, and then it's in between. And so there's a lot of a struggle, and then there's not really role model, or like there's a place you could go talk about it and discuss about it. So I think that led me to write more poetry, and then writing more.
So how long, when you came here, how long did it take you to feel comfortable enough to write in Korean and in English?
I'm still not comfortable. I'll tell you the truth. But
because the book
yes,
Generation 1.5 is in both languages.
It is both languages. I think this is like the very important. It's like when you love somebody, you wanted to learn their language. I think in a way, as you know, the poetry is like very intimacy, isn't it? Like you also talking to the one person, and then deliver your message. And I thought, the form of the poems is going to be very hard to translate it or talk about it. But how I studied, I was like a kid writing in Korean, and then I become the poets, like because in Korea you have to win the contest to become a poet, so you have to get the poet's license. So actually I won the contest, so I become a poet like a very young age, 22 years old. And I was going to college and then writing, and then my friends were saying, hey, what you're writing about, I wanted to know about it. And that's how I start like, wow, do you really want to know what I'm writing about? And then they say, yes. That's how I start like translating. And then they say, oh, I love this poem. And then that was the beginning of translating my poems. And then I wanted to share. That's why so first, the poem Generation 1.5, most of the poems I written in Korean first and translated. But later I start writing in English.
So from this book, from Generation 1.5, there are two poems that I think are symbolic of the book. One is the title poem, Generation 1.5, and the other one is called The Gap.
Yes.
And do you mind reading them both in Korean and in English?
I love to. 1.5세 없다, 없다, 없다. 확실한 신원도, 정확한 국적도, 편한 언어도. 언제나 한 몸속에 너무나 틀린 두 사람이 사는 것 같은 느낌으로 산다. Generation 1.5 Lack, lack, lack. Identity, citizenship, language. An awkward life. Two people living in one body.
And what about The Gap?
The gap. Gap is very interesting because everything I wrote Korean first and then translated. But actually this poem I wrote English first while I was writing this manuscripts ready, and I was this is so much between gap, just an awkward life, two people in one body. So I felt oh my God, who am I? So I was writing ready for this manuscript, and then so while I was ready for this manuscript, this poem that I wrote it English first, and then I said, so this is become gap in between me and myself, and I just become a kind of triangle in this poem. So I said, this is wonderful. I'm gonna make a triangle, and then after I finish in English, and then I'm gonna translate it, and I'm gonna make another triangle. And then actually in Korean, when I translate it, it become upside down triangle.
So it's another triangle, but the other,
The other side, yes. So I'm gonna read it in English first. This one because I wrote in English first. The gap. Gap between Hyunhae and Tanya. Gap between Seoul and Los Angeles. Gap between rice and bread. Gap between kimchi and salad. Gap between my natural skin and my cover skin. Gap between my mother tongue and my second language. Gap between my inherited blood and my transfused blood. Gap, the gap between me and my other self. Gap. 현애와 타냐, 그 사이의 갭. 서울과 로스앤젤레스. 그 사이의 갭. 밥과 빵, 그 사이의 갭. 김치와 샐러드, 그 사이의 갭. 내 살과 덧붙인 겉살, 그 사이의 갭. 모국어가 제2국어, 그 사이의 갭. 타고난 피와 푸열된 피, 그 사이의 갭. 나와 또 다른 하나의 나, 그 사이의 갭.
So at one point you became proficient enough to be able to write in both languages, and you have books published only in Korean. You also have bilingual editions. You also have books only in English.
Yes.
What's your decision-making process before you select a language for a book?
First one, I Generation 1.5, and then I got married, and then I have children, and then at the time, kind of it just stopped, and then so
You stopped writing?
Not stop writing, but it's also very important to go the meetings, and then you get to inspire with the other writers, and then you share. But I was sort of kind of isolated for raising children. It's very hard to go out. And I go this motivation, workshops and stuff, and then I learn how to write morning pages. And all that time, my world is surrounded by my children. So I was keep writing. So that become an essay book, and then I write for Korean column and that kind of stuff. So then there was for Korean audience, so that I got the publisher in Korea. They want me to publish in essay in Korean. So that was the essay book. And also, I start writing about like my motherhood in English. So then I found another publisher whose mother that she wanted to publish that, all English. That was the Yellow Flowers on Rainy Day.
Yeah.
So that became that one. And I was like keep writing in both languages. And then especially maybe that like I went back to get my MFA in poetry in Antioch University. And at the time I have to write like, in English constantly. So then that become my the latest book.
Which is the war is still within.
Yes.
Yeah, which is published recently. I know this is a very abstract question.
Yes.
But what do you think the Korean language and also the Korean literary traditions bring into your poetry in English?
I read a lot of Korean literature and poems, and then and also shijo is one of the Korean form in the shijo. So like we learned that all that kind of poems were in Korea. And I think that was like fascinating for me, because when I was studying English and then writing poetry in English, and then my poem from Korea, my original authentic form, and then also a lot of images is breaking through the languages. So sometimes it's very hard to bring it in there. But it was like just fascinating, and then it's new creation of the form, and then also new creation of the word, and then new thinking. It's like breaking through.
I see.
Yes, it's like a new creation, and then it's almost like I thought, talking about the gap, I thought like it was like you have to be separated. I thought like, oh, I'm Korean myself, American myself, Korean English myself, but now I feel like I'm merging it.
I see.
Yes.
Your next after Generation 1.5, you published Yellow Flowers on a Rainy Day. This is in 2003.
Yes.
This book is very family centered. You talk about the experience of being a mother, being a daughter. And maybe you could read one poem. I think the title is Circle of Life.
Yes.
Because I think it reflects what this book deals with.
The Circle of Life. My mom died of a heart attack in Korea, just a couple of days before she was to join us in US. I don't remember what we said, but I hung up on her. That was our last conversation. Who knew? A couple of days later, my sister called in the early morning to say, Mom is sick. I thought Mom was sick. A couple of minutes later, my brother called and said, the truth is she is gone. My dad and 4 of us flew back to Korea together. Just the 5 of us together in the airplane. It reminded me of 13 years ago when just the 5 of us left Korea together. We left Mom in Korea alone, with a promise that someday we'd reunite forever. We buried our mom in Korea in the traditional Korean way. After the funeral service, we ate Korean food in the cemetery. I didn't want to eat, but biologically, I craved more. I still remember the daikon soup and chili kimchi. I don't know it, but I was pregnant. My mom was born in sign of the rat. My daughter was born in sign of the rat. My aunt believes that my mom came back to life in my daughter's life. I don't know if I believe that, but sometimes I've noticed that my daughter is very thoughtful and wise like my mom.
Thank you.
And it is interesting is that this year is the year of the rat.
That's right.
Yes.
Right. The title of this book, Yellow Flowers on a Rainy Day, makes reference to the rain. But I have been like counting the times that you refer to rain in your poetry, and rain is everywhere. You have rain in Dublin, rain in Greenwich Village. There's a poem called Surrender with Rain. There is people walking in the rain. And then at one point in your latest book, you say, when I think of you, rain comes.
Yes.
Do you have a symbolic or a special connection with rain?
I think like because in Korea, I grew up in Korea, in summer, there is like called sonagi, like a heavy rain comes and stop. Or like, you become very melancholy and then like, teenagers, and then when rain comes, everything kind of stops, and then you just become, looking at outside of the window, and then just gives you the sense of like who you are, and then or maybe thinking about the someone you love, or thinking about a lot of memories, bring out the sweet memories, sad memories. And also one time there was like a heavy rain overflow in Korea, and then I was taking nap, like I was probably teenagers, whatever. And then I woke up, and then there was like heavy rain outside, and nobody was in the home. And it's just like an amazing experience. And so just like, the rain is just like a symbol. It could be my lover.
So you associate rain with intimacy, with reflection. So it's
image,
yeah.
And then just like it just gives me like, probably you will see a lot of coffee in my poems.
Yes, there is coffee,
yes.
but there is coffee and rain. But rain, I was
It's more.
Once I after reading this book, I was like, oh, let me see, and then I found many references to rain.
I feel like you know me.
In 2019, you published "The War is Still Within," and there's an interview, I think, in Rattle, and that you talk about this book, and you say, writing poems has been a long process. Even allowing myself to write certain words felt like an impossible transgression. Could you expand this statement when you talk about certain words? Which words, and also why was this a transgression?
Because of certain things that, like, as a woman, born in Korea and raised in Korea, that you're supposed to be this way, you're not supposed to do that way.
I see.
Then actually there's a poem called like Asian Women. Now it's of course the times change, but I think it's still there, that long time ago that, when you marry, you become, 30 years deaf, when you marry to, 30 years, mute, like all that, like things. So then like, there's a lot of feelings that you cannot express. There's so many words that you cannot say, or like if you express, then, that is not right
it's
to
like
express.
Against the norm.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're breaking the norm. And then, or like you have like some kind of feelings, but then you rather not express your feelings. So then in the poems, I threw this, saying that word. And then also, of course, then the word Asian, like there's a lot of, stereotype of like Asian lady, girls, quiet. Not anymore, but like still there is a kind of stereotype. And then you need to break it through it. And then it has to be courage. And then to using those words in the poem, it wasn't easy.
I see.
Yes.
Many of your poems, they have what we could call a you form. Like you talk it to a you. Sometimes the you could be a lover, could be a family member. Sometimes this you could be a whole culture. Like you talk about you, like the American culture. And there is one poem that I would like you to read. It's called American Dream, from your latest book, The War is Still Within.
American Dream. Lunchtime over. The deli is like a cemetery. I weigh salads on scale, punch numbers on the register, 12 hours a day standing for my hungry stomach. What about the dream of America? Don't dare to ask the question. Once, waiting to be somebody, wore me out, depleted my soul. No more. Invisible like a ghost, obedient like light, deaf as a Grand Canyon rock. Who am I to you, America?
One of the main sections in this book, in The Word is Still Within, is the poem or the section called Comfort Women.
Yes.
Could you talk first about the historical meaning of comfort women?
I didn't know about the comfort woman until like I was doing the research, and then I was like, when I was like writing my paper at the MFA program, and I find out myself writing about a lot of women's issues, and then I wanted to find out more about my ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like writing, and then I was researching, and then I find out about the comfort women. And then I said, what is it? And then I saw this picture of the comfort women, that which would be the cover of my book too. And I was very, very distraught. And then I was like even feel guilty not know about this history. And then I was research more about it. And then I find out there was like 200,000 women during World War II. They were like a sexual slavery.
From which country?
From Japan. So like yes. And then after the war's over, but still these women didn't come out to say I was comfort women.
Yeah.
That was 1991. Haksun Kim came denounced that I was comfort woman. That was almost like 46 years later. Mm-hmm. One day she was watching TV, and then in Japan they said like, no, we didn't do it, So then she said, I have to say the truth. But that's the whole thing about the culture things, like the transgression. They couldn't come out because they couldn't speak of the truth, because they know that if they talk about the truth, nobody will help them or honor their what's happened to them. Yeah. So it had to be that long. Then I was thinking about like what kind of things life they gone through all these years, and then I read like more about it. And a lot of people, they never been married, they never talked to anybody else about what happened. Can you imagine their lives?
So you were doing research and you found this.
Yes.
You found these women and also the suffering that they went through, and then you decided to write poems.
Yes.
Or a series of poems about them.
Like a persona poem.
Yes.
So I wanted to be with them and then feel what they feel. I think that would be more effective with the readers. And then also you talk about how the Korean poem comes with it. Even though this like a poem that I wrote in English first, but then I used the space, the Korean space, to give the breathing space to the readers to breathe, because it cannot go on to the next line. And then visualizing of even the words, how to choose it, and then how to put it on the page, that I gave the space, visualization.
We have selected a couple of sections, I think, from this poem. So
yes. Cultural context is very important. And this poem, I say maru is the wooden floor. That's what grandma's sitting. And it's songpyeon is the autumn. It's the Korean rice cake that we ate in Korean Thanksgiving. And we're putting the pine needle in when we steam this rice cake. And I did it too when I was in Korea.
I see.
That I go the mountains and then gather these pine needles, so that my aunt, when she makes it rice cake, And then she put the pine needle in there so that it smells pines with it. That's why like the poem, like I hope like, that goes understand. That's why like its culture context is like so important, understanding another culture instead of just like reading, the word.
Yeah.
So 1941, the autumn. Autumn night, Japanese soldiers, withering swords, dragged me away while I was gathering pine needles that fell from my basket, filling the air with the scent of their white blood. When you scream in your dream, there's no sound. On the morrow, Grandma's making songpyeon, asking Mom, is the water boiling? Will she bring pine needles before my eyeballs fall out? I feel pain there. They put long stick between my legs. Open up, open, 바꿔주신지. They rage, spraying their spawn. The smell of the burning dog, burning life, panting, grunting on top of me. Under my blood, I am dying. 1943, Shanghai, China. One night, a soldier asked all the girls, who can do 100 men? I raised my hand. Sunja did not. The soldiers put her in boiling water, alive, and fed us. What is living? Is Sunja living in me?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.